WAME ಎಕ್ಸೆಟ್ರಾ. ಕಾನ್ಫ್ಲಿಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎಂಬ ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನು ಕುರಿತಾಗಿ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸವನ್ನು ಕೇಳಲಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಸಂಪನ್ಮೂಲ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಶ್ಯಾಮ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್ BR, ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಬಯೋಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ, ರಾಮಲಿಂಗಸ್ವಾಮಿ, ರೀಎಂಟ್ರಿ ಫೆಲೋ, ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈಡ್ ಜಿಯಾಲಜಿ, ಮ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರ್ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ. ಇವರನ್ನು ಗೌರವಪೂರ್ವಕವಾಗಿ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಾಗಾರಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸುತ್ತಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ಸ್ವಾಗತದ ದ್ಯೋತಕವಾಗಿ ಹೂ ನೀಡುವ ಮೂಲಕ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಚಿದಾನಂದ AL, ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಟರ್, ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಜುಕೇಷನ್, ಇವರು ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸಬೇಕಾಗಿ ಕೇಳಿಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೇನೆ. ಇವರ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಪರಿಚಯವನ್ನು ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಜಯಲಕ್ಷ್ಮಿ, ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಜುಕೇಷನ್, ಇವರು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡಬೇಕಾಗಿ ಕೇಳಿಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೇನೆ.
Good afternoon everyone. Dr. Shyam Prasad Gwarija Raghu, Ramalingaswamy Fellow, Department of Biotechnology, Associate Professor, Ramanujan Fellow, Department of Science and Technology, Neurogenetics Lab, Department of Applied Zoology, Mangalore University. Its educational qualifications: Ramalingaswamy Fellow, Department of Applied Zoology, Mangalore University; Ramanujan Fellow, Department of Applied Zoology, Mangalore University; Research Scientist at Duke NUS Graduate Medical School, Singapore; Research Scientist in Neuroscience Research Partnership in Singapore; Postdoctoral Fellow in Max Planck Institute of Neurobiology, Germany; DAAD Fellow in University of Freiburg, Germany; PhD in Neurobiology at Mangalore University, India; Master of Science in Applied Zoology, Mangalore University, India. Sir has published more than 200 papers in both national and international reputed journals. Some of them are toxicological profiling of onion peel derived mesoporous carbon nanosphere using vivo Drosophila melanogaster model, published in Applied Sciences. Reduced sensory system in pit building antlion larvae related to sit and wait predation, published in PNAS, India. Alpha beta and also alpha beta 42 expressing Drosophila melanogaster model for Alzheimer's disease. Quantitative proteomic identifies altered protein dynamics of relevance of neurodegeneration, published in a Journal of Integrative Biology. And also dietary agents in mitigation chemotherapy related to cognitive impairment. First review addressing the benefits, gaps, challenges and way forward, published in Food and Function. And also design, synthesis and biological evaluation of novel thiazolidinone derivatives, Asian Journal of Chemistry. And also medical plans in mitigating mobile phone radiation induced neural damage, a review electromagnetic biology and medicine. Sir, to his credit, he has written many books and chapters. Some of them are neuroanalytical studies on brain of Drosophila melanogaster, neurobiology of food addictions, visualizing neurons and Drosophila. And also he has been invited for many national and international conferences as resource person. He has delivered many guest talks and also conferences and resource in many reputed research centers, colleges and universities. Sir reviewed many journals and received many fellowships and awards. DAAD Fellow in the University of Freiburg, Germany; Max Planck Postdoctoral Fellowship, Germany; a Star Research Fellowship in Singapore; Duke NUS Graduate Medical School Fellowship in Singapore; Young Investigator Meeting Travel Grant, India; Bioscience, India; Department of Biotechnology Ramalingaswamy Re-Entry Fellowship, India; Department of Science and Technology Ramanujan Fellowship in India, Visiting Fellow, New York University, Abu Dhabi. Sir has lifetime membership in Indian Science Congress Association and also Indian Academy of Neurosciences, also lifetime membership in the Indian Society of Developmental Biosciences and other academic achievements. Chief editor for the book released by Mangalore University on Biodiversity of Mangalore University campus, Mangala Gangotri. One of the brain images was selected as a cover page for the Science Signaling Journals. Recognized regular PhD guide in Department of Applied Zoology, Mangalore University. Member of Organizing Committee, National Workshop on Emerging Target and Biomark in Cancer Therapy. Member of Board of Studies, St. Aloysius College, Mangalore. And also examiner for PhD and MSc exams at Mangalore University, Manipal University, Ennapoya University, Nitya University and St. Aloysius College. EC member of Mangala Alumni Association, Mangalore University. Member of International Quality Assurance Cell, Mangalore University. Member of National Educational Policy Implementation Committee, Mangalore University. Member of Research Development Consultancy and Patent Cell, Mangalore University. Member of Core Committee Research Development Consultancy and Patent Cell, Mangalore University. So now I request resource person to take over the occasion.
Okay, so good afternoon. I think you are filled with lot of So I hope in last 2 weeks last 2 days you are filled with a lot of information about publication and how we can do publication, all those things. I think till last talk we were informed like how to do publication, but I will talk about publication ethics, and before that I would like to thank the organizer and the entire team for inviting me for this talk, and also I should also thank the UGC because for the first time they introduced this research ethics. But I think this should be the first topic to be taught to the research scholar or all the researchers, all the scientists, because this is more important than research methodology, because it will have a lot of, we'll discuss like what are this, I hope you can hear me, the last, what are the research ethics and all those things, and so I will start with this first thing, this is like for today, like we are in the era of publish or perish, whether it is you or, whether the research scholars or as a boss or, okay. This is also to wake you people up, because I think you had a very heavy lunch, so that every time we make some sound and so that people can attend to my talk. So as a research, as a research guide and also like as a PhD scholar, so this is, I think we all face this problem, like either we have to publish or perish. I think we all agree with this. I think there is no objection for this part, because either you publish, this is like a competitive world, and either we have to publish to submit your thesis, and as a guide or as a faculty in an academic situation in an academic institute, I should also publish. Otherwise, if my PhD student doesn't publish, like after some time, my career will also be gone. So we are all in this world of publish or perish, but this will give us a lot of pressure. It's not only for you. I think, since you people are in the first year of PhD, it's not, I think you are not still feeling this pressure, but I think you will feel it like from second year or third year, because this is more important, because if you don't publish, I think at least in Mangalore University you can't submit your PhD thesis. At least you need to have 2 first author paper. So not only you, also your boss will have the same problem, because all of you will have this publication pressure, like how to publish. And at the end, with all this struggle, like 3 to 4 years of struggle in the lab and like all this work, everything, then we try to publish. And we are happy, like we try to submit our thesis, and after submitting a thesis, someone will evaluate and will get the PhD. But after some time, like and after your PhD and you'll join somewhere for academic job, or like you may move to company or any other job. But after some time you'll see such news like in papers like about, I mean, this is one of the recent, like around in last year, that is 2021, there is about 127 papers from India retracted for image duplication and manipulation. I mean, you'll just get such shocking news. I mean, then what we do is we'll just search in this list whether our name is there, because that's also very important, because but then we just neglect it. Okay, this is from some other university, and maybe it's some small university, we are not worried. But is it only from small university? It's not like that, because if you look at some of the premier institute in India, like for example IISc, I'm sure like all of you know that Indian Institute of Science, one of the top institute in India. I mean, if you look at the scientific research, so the IISc, and also there is another very big institute, that is NCBS in Bangalore. Even in this institute also, some of the papers got retracted recently. So question is not about the university or the university professor or university student. So even the big people, I mean, we consider them big people because they don't need to manipulate data, because they get so much of money compared to universities. They get like, I mean, whatever money they want, they get it, but still you can see this type of behavior or this type of news from NCBS, IAC, some top scientists, I mean, top labs, I mean, top institute. But okay, next we think that, okay, maybe this is our problem, that is Indian problem. I mean, not we are Indians and we try to do it, or it could be the Asian problem, because we always have like a I mean, what we call this? We always think that the Asian do a lot of manipulation, all those things. But then we can go to next thing, like this is, look at this one. This is from Oxford University. So this major art journal retract 2 papers from Oxford group for misconduct. That was also another big news. So it is not only the Asians, even University of Oxford, I mean, this is like topmost institute in the world. So they also do this. So, so then we can say, okay, this is some institute and some journal. So from here you can say, okay, these are some smaller journal, okay, people get published in this case and they get retracted. But then we can go to the bigger one, like this is a very big journal, that is, I mean, I hope some of you know that this is a Nature journal. It's like Nature is #1 scientific journals in the world. Even Nature also retracts some of the paper recently, and these people got a lot of awards for their discovery, all those things. But even this big journal also does this, because when I say big journal, because getting publication in Nature is not so easy, because it is so critical, because when we submit any paper to journal like Nature, we'll get at least 10 pages of reviews. It's not like other journal, because I mean, if you look at other journal, like you get like 2 to 3 pages of reviews or comments, but in the case of Nature, most of the time like 7 to 10 pages of reviews. That means like these results are so much critically reviewed by people like expert from particular field. So that is why getting paper in a Nature is, first of all, is very difficult, and then we can imagine like even some of the papers in Nature journal also get retracted. So this is like now becoming not a restricted, like how you call, like it is not region specific, this is not I mean institute specific, but it is now getting global. I mean, I could also say that it is almost like a global disorder, like publication retraction. So then the question is it only small people? Because now it is like, it could be even Nature paper can also publish by, I mean, small groups, or if their work is good. But then comes very interesting, I hope you can read this. This is Chemistry Nobel laureate Francis H. Arnold retract paper. Like this happened last year. So even after getting Nobel Prize, one of her paper got retracted last year. And of course she apologized to the media, all those things. But the question is, there was some problem in the paper. So, I mean, I gave you a long list of like starting from India and I mean global level, like all this retraction. But in all this retraction, there is one thing very common, because after retraction, every time the person who was blamed was the first author or the PhD student. Okay, I mean you get this point, because it is always easy to blame the PhD students, because first of all, this paper doesn't get retracted very fast. It takes like 5 to 10 years. Like if someone wants to repeat this work and if they are not successful, then they will complain to the journal, then with this paper get retracts. So by that time, this PhD student is already, must have already got some job in some company or somewhere else. So then it is very easy to blame, because who is not there in the lab or who is not there in the institute, we can easily blame. So that is one way. And second thing is, if the guide or the boss takes the blame himself or herself, then he or she will lose the job. So that is why always the blame will be on the first author and the PhD student. So that is why I am just trying to warn you from the beginning. So if there is any retraction of paper from your boss at the end, as a PhD student, I think you will be blamed. Not now, but later stages. But let's see, but personally I feel it is very wrong assumption that we can't always blame research scholar or the PhD student, because when you are doing PhD, sometimes you don't know the complete field, but as a boss, the boss should know entire field and all those things. So that is why what I say is scientific publication is a team effort. It is not like one person, like it should be blamed only one person, but it should be blamed the entire process. But before that, I'll just go through this process. During any publication, so there are a lot of factors involved. So two important factors is authors. So if you take any author, any journal or any publication, whether it is coming from science or social science, so there will be always first author, so who is responsible for all the work, who is responsible for all the experiment. Sorry. So then there is corresponding author, so that could be your boss. So that should be always your boss. And these two actually decide where this paper exactly has to go. So there are two responsible person in one, before you submit this paper to a journal, that is first author as a PhD student and the corresponding author who is the boss, who could be the last author. But most of the time the first author will do all the experiment what the boss says. So according to me, the last author, this corresponding author, has to take the more responsibility here, because that is why they are corresponding. But in most of the time we don't realize the value of corresponding authors, because they think that I'm the boss and I'm the corresponding, because I get more points for promotion. But as a corresponding author, he or she has the more responsibility, because they have to take care of the entire paper. If there is any misconduct in the paper, or is there any malpractice in the paper, the corresponding author has to take the responsibility. That's according to me. So, but most of the time it doesn't happen. Like the corresponding author will simply blame the research scholars or the PhD students. So then there is another big role played by the reviewer. So you prepare your publication, and then of course you will be the first author, then there will be corresponding author, then there will be a lot of author in between. So maybe contributing little bit of experiment in that part. I'm mostly talking about scientific research. I'm not talking about social study, because social studies are mostly by reading. I don't think you do a lot of experiment here, because you do only analysis, which is already available data. But in the case of scientific experiment, like you would do a lot of experiment, and then the person who did a lot of experiment, he'll be the first author, and the boss will be the corresponding author. Then after preparation of this paper, what we do is we just submit it to a journal. But if you take any journal, any standard journal, so there will be someone called reviewers. Okay, so any standard journal will have minimum 3 reviewers. Okay, so these people are also very much responsible for accepting that paper. So reviewer is not simply like look at the paper and it is coming from my friend's lab and he just accept it. But at the end, both corresponding author, of course the first author cannot do all this malpractice, but the corresponding author and reviewers, all the 3 reviewers has to be responsible for any type of misconduct that is happening. And of course at the end we get the publication and then it will get published in a journal. So So here what I'm trying to say is it is not only one person should be blamed for the entire process of malpractice, or if there is any fabrication in the data, so the entire group, that is first author, last author and even the middle author also, because sometimes you get the experimental data from different authors but the responsibility of corresponding author is to check whether this data is really good, because if there are 5 authors, if one person is doing mistake and all other 4 people will be getting the blame at the end. I mean, I'm talking about like you publish something today and this retraction things will happen like after 10 or 15 years. So that is why we have to be very careful when we are publishing these things. And next let's go like, so by saying that there are a lot of people responsible for this scientific misconduct or research publication misconduct, let's see what is scientific and research misconduct. How we can define a scientific and research misconduct. So it is, in generally, it is any behavior by a researcher. It could be by the PhD student or it could be also by the boss, because sometimes the students are also forced to manipulate data because the boss wants the paper. So I'm just telling you like what can happen in future, because you people are all just started your PhD. In some labs, it also happens that the boss wants the paper, then they try to force students to manipulate data. This is very common in some of the labs. But so that is why we can generally classify or generally define scientific and research misconduct as it is any behavior by a researcher, anybody in the like doing experiment or the writing paper, whether intentional or not, because once you are caught, it's not like if you are not doing it intentionally, you'll be still punished for that mistake that fails to meticulously respect high scientific and ethical standards. So this is a general statement. So next let's see what are different types of scientific misconduct or research misconduct, what people normally do it. So there are different types of research misconduct people can do. The first one is fabrication or falsification of the data. So this is what happens most of the research misconduct. People try to fabricate, even though they know that this is wrong, they try to manipulate the data, because manipulating data is very simple, isn't it? Like you have to just change some numbers in your Excel sheet, so it is a completely different data, like you change the number according to your wish. So that is how some people do this fabrication or falsification of the data, just change the data. And second one is plagiarism. That is, I think most of you know that what is plagiarism. Plagiarism is nothing but you are copying someone's idea or someone's paper, because most of the time what we do is like we just do copy paste. When you are writing your first paper, so that's what's going to happen, like we are going to do this copy paste. Even we did it, but of course after that you have to change the sentence according to your experimental design. So that is what plagiarism. So plagiarism is one of the biggest problem today, and people do a lot of plagiarism. Like that is why now plagiarism is like plagiarism check is very compulsory in most of the PhD submission. During PhD submission, I think we didn't have that problem when we submitted our thesis, but today we have a lot of plagiarism software, and when you are submitting PhD thesis, you have to put this plagiarism certificate from the university saying that it is below 10% of plagiarism. So this is very serious, because we see a lot of copy paste issues in the thesis, also in the papers. And the third one is problematic data presentation or analysis. So this is very common, because people sometimes we don't know like how to exactly analyze the data. So then there will be some problem with the problematic data presentation or analysis. So but this could be avoided. So we can go to some expert and we can talk to them, and they can help you, and we can just put them as one of the author, or you can also put acknowledgement list or something. And second one, especially when we are doing like animal experiment, so failure to obtain the ethical approval. Sometimes we give some wrong ethical approval because I hope most of you are from the science background. Those who are from social science background, like this is very important in scientific research. Like if you want to use any animal model like a mouse or rat, some of the bigger animals, we have to take permission from the ethical committee in the institute, like for each experiment. So, but sometimes people make some mistake here, they don't take the ethical permission and then they just publish, and after some time they'll be caught, because this ethical committee will provide you particular ethical clearance number. So this number is very, very important. Like after some time, if someone finds that these experiments were not done without ethical clearance or without that ethical clearance number, that paper can also be retracted. So we can just complain to the journal so that that particular paper can be retracted. So this is very important for the science, I mean, PhD scholars or those researchers from the scientific field. And this is another big problem, that inappropriate claims of authorship. This is another very important point that we have to take care, because we take help from different people, okay, during the experiment, but after some time we forget them, isn't it? Like that is, I mean, luckily we have this, the habit of forgetting things, because we have to, that is only to forget bad things, not for the forgetting good things, but unfortunately most of the time we take help from different lab people or different people from the our neighboring lab, all those things, then we just forget things because we think, I mean, we say that we forgot it, then we try to publish this paper. But after some time, if the person who really helped in creating data, and if that person has the original raw data with him or her, they can also go and claim that this paper was like published without my permission, and I have all the original data. If that original data is produced to journal, so journal can take action on that particular paper, and they can make a committee to inquire the entire thing, because once you have this original data with you, so that means that is generated by you, so that it can also happen. So we have to avoid these things also, inappropriate claim of authorship. So before publishing, just make sure that you put all the names in the author list or at least acknowledge in the acknowledgement list. But most of the time we forget things, so but don't do that, because this is also considered as one of the scientific or research misconduct, and in such cases also the paper can be retracted if that other person go to journal and complain to the journal. And duplicate publication, this is another very common things happening nowadays. There are a lot of reports recently, like what people do is they just take already published paper, and then this is, I call them as really fools, because they just take this paper, they just change the title, okay, title and author, and remaining part will be same. So this is some sort of duplicate publication. So this is happening very commonly, because sometimes both the PhD scholar and the boss are in hurry to get the paper. In such cases, they do such things. But you have to know that somewhere you will be caught, because today it is not like, our time, it's not like hard copy, everything is soft copy. If you put this one sentence in your Google, it will take you all the places wherever that sentence is used. So everything is open today, because if you put everything in Google, you can get everything. So that is why never do this duplicate publication, because that is, nowadays it is happening very, very common things. And undisclosed conflict of interest, like we have to do this conflict of interest, and if you undisclose these things also, all this can be some type of research misconduct. So fabrication of data, plagiarism, problematic data presentation, failure to obtain the ethical approval, inappropriate claim of authorship, duplicate publication, and finally the conflict of interest. But the question is, we will be very happy once we get the paper, because it will give us publication and it will give us PhD degree, and we'll be happy, and we'll be applying for some job, and we'll get all we want to get it from that PhD or from that publication. But we need to realize there are a lot of consequences if you publish something wrong, especially if you are doing scientific research or some biological research, and if you publish these things, there will be a lot of consequences. I think we need to understand that before you start your experiment. So what are these consequences? So I'll give you some of the consequences, what exactly happens in the research misconduct, that is first society and humanity. So wrong procedure, false and fabricated data bring out product, because sometimes we prepare some product based on some fabricated data and it gets published, and we claim that this drug or this chemical can cure cancer or whatever it is. So but it will be considered unsafe for humanity. If the person, I mean, if we just say that, okay, my drug is very good anti-cancer drug, and you publish it with all the fabricated data, and finally one day it will come to the, based on your research, it will go to the next step and it will come to the market. Just imagine that if this drug or that product is used by someone, it is really considered unsafe for the humanity. So we have to think that also, like before you claim something from your research publication or from your research experiment, you should also worry about the humanity, and it will actually, you are actually going something against the humanity, like you are actually killing someone. I mean, I would say it is just killing someone if you making some such mistakes. And fellow researcher, this is another thing, because most of the lab will have a lot of people in the lab, and one person's does all these mistakes and he publishes and he gets big paper, and all the next person, I mean all the next people who are joining that lab will take that paper as the landmark, and then they will start from there. So they think that, okay, this is already there, I don't need to do this, and I will continue from there. So basically published data knowledge derived from research misconduct will mislead the fellow researcher. It is not only from the fellow researcher from your own lab, and also it's a fellow researcher from the other lab. For example, if you're working on cancer field, there will be like thousands of people working on that particular field. So if you make any mistakes, all other will follow this, I mean, research further, and they will also make the mistake. So it will end up in huge loss of money. And later if they find that this experiment cannot be replicable or it cannot be replicable, so then it will end up in huge loss of money, funds, and also time, because this is not like one person's work, like there will be hundreds of people working in different labs, and just imagine like all the people's data will be wasted at the end. So then it will also kill a lot of time, and also the big thing is reputation. That's the reputation of the, not only reputation of the candidate or the reputation of the guide, also the reputation of the, I mean if you look at this, I mean also reputation of, I mean today I stand here and tell that people are making misconduct in Oxford University and I mean in US, all those things. So you are spoiling reputation of yourself, you are spoiling your reputation of your boss, you are spoiling reputation of the institute, and you are spoiling reputation of the country. I mean similarly, and just like me, someone will talk about Indian research also, they're like, these people are making, so so that is another problem. So that is a big thing. And medical treatment, and this especially comes from the medical research, like where people claim that, okay, my drug can cure this, all those things, but if it is really not curing, it will also end up in a lot of wrong treatment, it will end up in wrong diagnostic and therapeutic. Published guidelines lead to the professional disaster. I mean, of course, just imagine if that drug is, instead of curing cancer, if it is killing that person, instead of killing cancer cell, if it is killing other cell, I mean, I'm just talking like in a scientific way, I mean, scientific for the scientific field, instead of killing only the cancer cell, if it is killing all the other neighboring cell, you are basically killing that person, isn't it? Like there's a medical treatment, it will also have a lot of problems later, and also public trust and government policies, like it may destroy public trust on the science. I mean, if you claim such thing, it will also destroy public trust on the science. It will also misguide the government. I mean, last 2 years we saw that how vaccination, all those things, because there are like people say that vaccination is good, not bad, all those things, and also based on that, because government has to take some policies based on this discovery, so that is also affecting. So it may destroy public trust on the science, it will misguide government and lead to implement of some erroneous health policies and laws in the country. So so just imagine you are making one small mistake in the lab to make a paper, but it will have lot of consequences. So these are some of the consequences. I'm talking about like really like clinical studies, all the big researches, all those things. But the question is, why we are doing this? Because I mean, if you look at this list of retraction paper, this is only beginning. Okay, there will be lot of paper are going to get retracted in future, because we know that there are a lot of labs and lot of labs are doing this type of misconduct. So, but the question is, why we are doing this? Why people are doing this? Reason for scientific and research misconduct. First of all, lack of knowledge about the research and publication ethics. So that's why I really thank the University Grant Commission to introduce this research ethics. I mean, I think this was introduced last year. So just imagine like all the people who used to work, I mean, it's not that all the people who used to work before did all the mistake, but I think before starting any research, the student has to be taught, or they should have the knowledge about the research and the publication ethics, and also the consequences. You may publish, but I'll tell you like you may say that okay, I get the paper, but you'll be caught at some point. So you have to be careful with that. Maybe not now, but after 10-20 years, because that's what happens in all this retraction. This paper from NCBS. So this is like 15 years back paper. So the paper, it was published 15 years back. It was retracted last year. So I mean, now the people are blaming the first author, who must be already like 45 years old, and he must be happily living with this family somewhere, but suddenly you get this news that your paper got retracted, and I mean, if it is very serious, you can also go to jail. Okay, so that is also happens in the clinical malpractice. And also the second point is the multidisciplinary and more global collaboration. So especially like if you have global collaboration, like if I have some collaboration with the US or German labs, because they are very fast in doing the experiment, because I know that, I mean I hope all of you know that getting some chemical or something in Indian universities is not so easy. It takes a lot of time, but because if you work in big labs like in Max Planck Institute or Harvard Institute, or like if you order something in the morning, you get the chemical by afternoon. It will be on your table by afternoon. So just imagine like if it takes 1 month, even in IAC or NCBS in big institute, it takes minimum 3 to 4 weeks. So they get it in 2 hours, we get it in 1 month minimum. So you can imagine the speed of experiment. So they can do very fast and we can do very slow. I would say very slow. But when you have the global collaboration, like if I am collaborating with these people, they are much faster than us, and we are very slow. So then what we do, like we have to match with them. So that will also end up in a lot of scientific misconduct. That is, we just try to create some data and we say that okay, we finished this experiment, because otherwise the next installment of fund will not be released, or we will not get the next collaboration. And that is what happens. That's the second point, that is multidisciplinary and more global collaborations. That is also another problem. And increasing pressure on research to publish. So this is another big problem. I mean, that's, we are all facing, like as a research scholar, you are facing, as a PhD guide, I am also facing it, because I had to publish, otherwise I will not survive in this academic atmosphere, because fortunately or unfortunately we took this academic career as our future. So we have to be very careful. This is increasing pressure on research to publish. So it could be pressure on boss, it can be pressure on the student. So both pressure will create a lot of papers. At the end, it will be just like a waste paper. If it is get retracted after 10-15 years, so you can imagine. So this is fourth important point is financial inducement, compromising research integrity. So this is another big problem. Like today, it is very difficult to get the research funding, like anywhere. I mean, not only India, or if you go to any big countries also, getting research funding is very difficult. So what people do is, so whatever research grant they get, they try to make some research misconduct and try to publish big papers. so that they can convince the research funding agency that with this much of money we are publishing big papers, and so that they can also convince other research funding agency to get more money. So this is another biggest problem. This is almost like a global problem now actually. Financial problem, that is just to get more publications, so you have to publish bigger paper, like a high quality paper. So that also forces some of the labs to publish big journals. So these are some of the point, like some of the reason for lack of knowledge and multidisciplinary or global collaboration, increasing pressure on research to publish, and financial inducement. But the thing is, like, this is general problem all over the world. But the question is how to avoid research misconduct, like how to avoid research misconduct. This is what I think we are going to see now, because what are the steps taken by the research community to reduce the scientific or research misconduct, and globally, or it's in all the, basically it's globally, like there are a lot of research association today who are making sure that all the research or all the scientific research will not have any malpractice. That is what we are going to study. So let's see what are the steps or how to avoid scientific and research misconduct. The first thing is, so that's what we are doing now, that is encourage research integrity among researchers. First, make sure that you know the research ethics and what are the consequences, because once you know the consequences of research misconduct, like what is going to happen in future, I think you will be little bit serious on your research and you will not do this mistake. So that is what currently UGC or most of the institutes are trying to do, like only from last year. That is very good thing, like encourage research integrity among researchers. And also there is something called COPE, that is the Committee of Publication Ethics. So this is one of the associations I'm going to talk about later. So COPE is nothing but Committee of Publication Ethics. So they advocate for every research institute to recruit a research integrity officer. So there should be one research integrity officer in every institute who will, in each of the research institutions, to monitor and guide various issues pertaining to research ethics. So that person has to make sure that all the research scholars or all the faculties, it's not only the research scholars, all the faculties working in that institute follow proper research ethics or try to get the information who is making mistake, because as I already told, when there is research misconduct, there will be reputation problem for the entire institute. The institute has to take the responsibility. So that is, the research institute has to take the primary responsibility to make sure that there is nothing happens in the, like there is no misconduct happens in any labs or any division of the institute. So this is very big responsibility from the responsibility of the researcher, and then the responsibility of the institute to make sure that if there is any simple complaints about this research misconduct, university should take care of this and they should do the inquiry and make sure that this research or this work will not be published from that institute. So that is what COPE is trying to do this. So let's discuss what is this COPE. So COPE, again, this is a Committee of Publication Ethics. So this is a non-profitable association, like it is association of all the authors and also reviewers and also the so as you can see here, the Committee on Publication Ethics. It's a committee to educating and supporting editors, publishers and those involved in publication ethics. So this is again a non-profitable association, and you can also be the member of this, and you can also suggest some of them. I'm also a member of this association because there are about more than 12,000 members in this association, and people can suggest like how we can improve the research methodology, or like how we can improve the research ethics in different way, and at the end they will come up with different policies so most of these policies are addressed to the journals. Because even though we are getting some data and we are submitting to journal, but journal has to be very careful in evaluating these publication, because as a scientist, I also get a lot of publication from different international journals. What I do is, personally, like I just look at the abstract, then I look at the result, okay? Especially, I don't know about the social studies, but in science, like in whether it is biological science or any chemistry or physical studies, if you look at the data, you can make out whether it is real data or it is manipulated data. This comes because of the experience, because in science, nothing is perfect, isn't it? Like you can't have 0 or 100% data. If you just look at some data, there will be like, they'll be using some drug, so this drug will be making 100%, if it is an anti-cancer drug, it will be curing 100% that disorder. So that is just impossible, isn't it? As a common person, you are clear that this is not going to happen. So I will just check all the result part, and by looking at figure 1, figure 2, so you are almost sure that, okay, this is cooked data, but you can't reject it, saying that, okay, this is cooked data, because in research field you have to be very polite with the, you have to respect all the researcher, because it could be also good data, because we don't know, but if all the figures have 100% data, like, so you don't trust it, isn't it? So what I do is, I write, in such cases I don't reject it, but what I do is I write very long reviews, so that I'll suggest some more experiment, and I will suggest some more suggestion, like some more changes in all those things. And the idea is this paper should not get published. So we put some sort of very long experiment, all those things, because you can't directly say that this is a fake data and you can't accept it or to the journal, because you don't know. Sometimes it could be good data, but we can make out this is wrong data. But you can have a long review, and after that, if the authors can answer all these reviews and they can do some more experiment to prove their hypothesis with proper data, then we can accept it. So that is why COPE is targeting mostly on the journals. So they put like about 10 different practices, that is the Committee on the Publication Ethics. They want to put a lot of regulation on journals, so that is what we call it as COPE's code practices. So there are about 10 practices. Let's see one by one in a very briefly, like I will not go in detail about this. First one is allegation and misconduct. So according to the COPE policies, the journal should have a clearly described process for handling allegations. So if there is allegation, if someone just complained to the journal that, okay, there was some paper published on this day, on this date, so they will just complain to this journal, but they can't take it directly. So, because sometimes it could be also from your neighboring lab who doesn't want this paper to get published also, because that's, this is like, there are a lot of politics in research, okay, so don't think that science is very clean and, research is very clean and straightforward, because there are a lot of politics. So it could be this complaint also maybe coming from your neighboring lab saying that this paper cannot be published. So journal should have clearly described process for handling allegation. They can't take this allegation directly, so they have to check whether this allegation is really correct or not. So that is why journal should have a clearly described process for handling allegation. And journals must take seriously allegation of misconduct, pre-publication and post-publication. So there could be this allegation come both the way, two ways, like one, the first thing is it could also come as a pre-publication, because if someone knows that, okay, there is a paper coming from this particular lab who is doing a lot of misconduct, maybe there is competing lab, so the other lab can complain to the journal, okay, there is, because sometimes once you publish, once you submit the paper, this paper might go to the other person, the competitive lab, for the reviewer. As a reviewer, if that reviewer finds some misconduct in that paper, they can also tell this journal that there is some misconduct. So that is what we call it as pre-publication allegation. So you can also complain to journal before publication, and also you can also complain to the journal for the post publication, that is after publication also. So journals must take serious allegation of misconduct pre-publication and post-publication. It doesn't mean that, okay, we already published it, we can't take any action. So journals should take the action on this paper if there is misconduct. And the third one, that is, policy should include how to handle allegation from the whistleblowers. That is, again, I told you that there could be someone really want to disturb you or destroy your career. They can also complain to the journal. So the journal has to be very careful whenever they take this allegation from some of the lab. So that's about the allegation of misconduct. And second, that is authorship and contributors. I think I already told you that is the journal should have a clear policies that allow for transparency around the who contributed to the work in what capacity. Like journal should make sure that, so that is what happening in most of the journals recently, like they also put one section where we have to also put like contribution, like what each author is contributing. So we have to make sure that, okay, the first author did this experiment and second author did this experiment, so that later if someone finds mistake in one experiment, so we can catch only that person. It should not be the first author, isn't it? Like if you make sure that from the beginning in the paper itself, okay, the experiment 1 is done by author 1, experiment 2 is done by author 2, and if the experiment 2 is found misconduct, so then you can directly catch the second person, because the first person could be innocent, because he or she might not have done any misconduct, but second person might have done the misconduct. That is why now COPE is bringing this new idea that we can catch only those person who was really doing the misconduct, so that only that person can be punished. So that is why this authorship and contributorship in every, if you look at any recent paper, you can see this contribution part. And the third one, that is the complaints and appeals. Journal should have a clear described process for handling complaints against the journal. So these should be, all this information should be like put on the journal website, like how they are going to handle all this allegation. So there should be a clear transparency process, complaints against the journal, its staff, editorial board or publisher. Because why this journal editors also responsible for sometime why they should be also involved in allegation, because sometimes these editors will be very close with one of the big scientists in one of the research institute. What this editor do is they take paper from that, because if some paper comes from one big lab, they will get a lot of citation. Okay, so that will improve the impact factor of that particular journal. So journal also plays a lot of politics here, because they want always papers from big lab because they get more citation. More citation means more impact factor. More impact factor means they can charge more, because it's all business, isn't it? Because today if you want to read any big article from any big journal, they charge, because you have to pay a lot of money to download this paper. I hope you already experienced this, like so that is why this is also, there are a lot of politics played by the editors on some journals also. Sometimes we have seen such things in like big conferences, like if you go to big conferences in big institute, the editors from these big journals will come to the conference and they will go to that person and they will read the data, they will read the posters presented on the, during the conference. So they will ask that, that professors to submit their paper to that journal, because they know that if that paper comes from that, if they publish papers from that particular lab, citation is going to high, and that's another level of politics. So that is why COPE also makes sure that journal should have a clear described process for handling complaints against the journal, its staff, editorial board or publishers. And also this is conflict of interest. So this is there should be very clear conflict of interest, like who are part of this institute. So this is another thing, like COPE is promoting this, another very important point, that is data and reproducibility. So here, like earlier when, earliest, when we were doing research, like we can just send the figure 1, figure 2, figure 3 to the journal. So then they will just look at the figure and then make sure that, okay, this is suitable for publication in this particular journal. But nowadays, COPE is making sure that journal will also take the raw data. So journal should also can take you, like when you publish, when you are, when not publish, like when you, like, like when you submit a paper to big journal, journal is also eligible or supposed to take the raw data from the authors. So if someone wants to check the raw data, they don't need to directly contact the authors, they can directly contact the journal, because journal has all the rights to keep that data, and they can also distribute. If someone has the doubt on that data, so they can also distribute this data to that particular lab. So journal should include policies on data availability and encourage the use of reporting guidelines, everything. So they can ask anything. So that is another way of making journals more clear. So we are more worried about journals here, because journals are the, finally journal is deciding which paper has to get published or not. So then ethical oversight, this I already discussed, that is every animal experiment has to get all the ethical clearance, all those things. Sometimes if you don't get ethical clearance for the larger animal, using for the larger animal, in the later stage also this work can be retracted. So that is ethical policies. And the seventh one is intellectual properties, like the journal should have all the intellectual properties. They should have the copyrights, like reproducing the data or reproducing the images, all those things. So they put some policies to the journal, so that all policies on intellectual properties, including copyright and publishing license, should be clearly described on the journal website. In addition, any cost associated with publishing should be obvious to authors and reader, because nowadays a lot of journals ask for the publication fee, so it should also be clearly mentioned on the journal website. And also the policy should be clear on what counts as pre-publication that will preclude consideration and what constitutes plagiarism. I mean, all this detail has to be put on the, and also the journal should also have a very clear journal management, like how they do the business model, like how much money they are taking for publication, and all these things also has to be put on the journal website. And also this is another important point, that is peer review process. Like as I told, whenever you submit a paper, it will go for review, like it will they will send it to many, I mean at least minimum 3 people, but this should be clearly mentioned on the journal website. And also, like for example, if I get a paper for reviewing, whatever comments I am giving, the journal has to keep it, like if someone asks this data later, they should also give it to that person. So now everything is open, like everything is more transparency. So journal should provide training for editors and reviewers and have policies on diverse aspect of peer review. Sometimes editors will not know, like if they are new to that particular journal, the journal should have a clear cut training program for this, all the editors and all the people who are involved in publishing this particular data. And this is very important. That's what happens today, like post-publication, discussion and correction. So all the journals today have to agree that if there is any mistake in the paper, they should be ready to either correct it, like even after publication. So there is like correction, it can also be submitted later stages. And also they should also be involved in post-publication discussion. I mean, if there is any serious problem with this publication, the journal should also be ready to retract that particular paper. So these are the 10 different points which our journal has to follow, and all this has to be put on the journal website, like all this, like all these practices, like what are the things journal has to do it. So this is what we call it as principles of transparencies. Everything has to be put on the journal website. So we have a very clear, the COPE has a very clear cut policies for journals so that journals will not make mistake in publishing wrong information. So similarly, similar to COPE, we also have another association. This is called WAME. I mean, it's also there in your syllabus. That is called World Association for Medical Editors. So this works almost similar like COPE, and they also bring a lot of policies to make sure that there is no research misconduct, and they will not publish, because this is more serious, because this is like most of the time it is the clinical studies coming in these papers, in this journal, that is medical journals. So they have to be more clear, more careful, because they are putting some data which is directly applicable to the human, because they are putting some of the clinical data. So WAME is also another association, that is World Association of Medical Editors. So they have to make sure that everything is perfect. So these are the two associations, that is COPE and WAME. So that is what policies and what are the information they put it on their website. We have to follow that, and so that's how. So these are some of the ideas. So, but these are not new, isn't it? Like for example, COPE is already like 25 years old association. WAME is also a very old association. So that doesn't mean that these associations were formed during the misconduct or recently. So these associations were, it was also there like from last 25 to 30 years, but they put all these policies for publication, all those things, but question is whether we are really following it. But that is what happens today, like there are a lot of papers getting retracted. So what I would like to tell at the end of this talk is like whether you do misconduct, I mean do research misconduct or whatever it is, like first of all, I mean whether your boss asks you to do it, or you want to do it yourself, but don't do it. Because sometimes your boss may ask you to do these things, misconduct, but don't do it. Because I mean, I'm giving this suggestion to all the research scholars, I mean all the research scholars who are recently starting or who are already finished some part of their research work, and this is also including my own research scholars who is sitting somewhere like in the corner. So I'm suggesting, if there is some force from your boss to do misconduct, don't do it, because it will cost you at the later stage. I mean, someday you will be caught and you will be blamed. Whether you do it or not, if there is any problem with your research part in your paper, you will be blamed at the later stages. That is why you have to be very careful. So that is what we say, that you have to be respectful and you have to respect your work. It could be very small work or very simple work, but do it with a lot of respect to that work, and make sure that this will have a lot of practical application in the later stages of your life or someone's life. Maybe not in your life, maybe it will be very serious matters in some other's life. And integrity, so this will kill your integrity at the later stages. If you do any, it's almost like I'm telling almost like a warning, so it will also kill your integrity. And follow all the ethics. So that's what you are supposed to do, and be honest, like with your research work. I mean, you may get very small paper, that doesn't matter, because paper is a paper. I mean, whenever we follow this big paper, we always have this problem. So if you are honest, I don't think anybody can force you to make mistakes or do some problem in your paper. So, I mean, I would like to say one small incident in our own research from Max Planck Institute. What I mean, how we respect, how we follow the ethics. Like this is very small, I mean not very small, it's a small incident but with very, very big message. So when I was working in Germany, like in Max Planck Institute in 2010, we made a very big breakthrough. I mean, there was a very big data, like breakthrough data in our research. So then we wanted to publish it in a very big journal. Okay, when I say very big journal, like we wanted to publish in Nature, that is today Nature is the top journal in science, which is having around 50 impact factors. So you can imagine like how big it is. So just to get name in Nature itself is a big thing. So we wanted to submit this paper, and we submitted this paper. We knew that this is really a big breakthrough research or breakthrough result from our side. We submitted this paper, and fortunately, like within 2 months, we got very good reviews. So, I mean, with only like 2 pages of review, I told like most of the time when you get reviews from Nature Journal, it's like 7 to 8 pages. But luckily we got it for 2 pages, and everything was positive, everything was happy. Like we knew that we can submit all the reviews within 10 days, and we can get a big paper, and we can make a big and we all knew that this is going to make big changes in our life, in all the authors involved in this work. And we got this review, and we were happy, and we were just doing all the experiment. But one of the author, he was a group leader he was also one of the author in the paper. He had doubt on one small experiment. Okay, one small experiment. I mean, we could have just closed our eyes, and we could have just submitted it, because in 10 days we are going to get a big news, that is paper in Nature. But he went and told my boss, that is the real big boss. So he's the director of the Max Planck Institute. So director of Max Planck Institute is almost like a vice chancellor of a university. So they have such a big, huge power. So he told my boss that I doubt this doubt is not coming from reviewer. Okay, this doubt is coming from one of the author. I mean, we could have simply closed our eyes and we could have submitted. But my boss took it very seriously, and he was a very senior professor, and he was a director of the Max Planck Institute, and he had a lot of Nature paper already. He could have simply told, okay, just send it. I mean, who will do that? Who will check it? But he took it very seriously, and he called me, and because I'm also one of the author, and he called me and the group leader and himself, because by that time the first author already left the lab. He submitted his thesis, and he went to Australia for vacation with his girlfriend. Okay, so he was enjoying in Australia. Then my boss called myself and the other group leader, and he told, like, we have to repeat this experiment. We can't take the risk, because even though it's a very small experiment, we have to repeat it. But the problem is, this guy is sitting in enjoying in Australia, because it's a very technical part, because we can't do this. It has to be done by that guy. So what my boss did is, he called this guy from Australia, and he sponsored all his trip back from Australia to Germany, and Germany back to Australia, both for him and his girlfriend. He told, like, you can just come for 4 days. Okay, we will prepare everything. You have to just do the experiment, and you can go back, and I will sponsor all your, because it's a huge big institute, Max Planck Institute. They don't need to worry about money. So this fellow came, from Australia, and he came, and I was also involved in this analysis. So I prepared everything, and 3 days continuously we worked like experiment, tea break, coffee break, all those things, and we continuously worked, and 3 days we finished everything, and we submitted these reviews. Of course, we replicated that experiment like at least 5 to 6 times in 3 days, and we were sure that, we knew that it is perfect, but we just wanted to recon. But you have to imagine, just to do that small experiment, my boss called this guy from Australia back to Germany, and he sponsored everything, want to make sure that everything is perfect. I think this is what I call it as ethics, isn't it? Like, we could have simply closed our eyes and published it, and we could have celebrated, but the satisfaction what you get after this getting publication, because on the day of publication, on the day of acceptance of this paper, my boss, came all the way from his office. You have to imagine, a director is coming from his office all the way to my room. I knocked on my room, and I opened my door, and I saw this guy, director standing in front of your office. It's just like almost like a dream, because these are very big people, because this person might get the Nobel Prize also in future, because these are very big shots. And he came, and he told, like, Sham, we did it, and he just hugged me. Because that is the expression in his face. Even though it is like nature is nothing for him, because he already has many nature papers, but the satisfaction and the ethics, that is what I want from our research scholars, because when we have this ethics and honesty, I think we can do wonders in research, and it could be very small things. We say, like, this is turning light to left, but it's it's the data, isn't it? And also I'm saying that there is also value for negative data also, because there are a lot of journals today accepting negative data. That is why if you have any negative data, that doesn't mean that it is wrong. I mean, you can't expect always positive data. There are a lot of journals today accepting negative data also. So that is why don't worry about your data, whether it is positive or negative, but don't make this mistake, that is research misconduct. I think with that I'll stop it here, and I think we are going to meet again on Tuesday at 2:30, and I think we will discuss what will happen if you do misconduct. So who is going to punish you for this misconduct later stage. So that's what we are going to say. So with that I'll stop it here. I mean, if you have any questions you can ask. Thank you. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we can also do it on Tuesday also. Because it's Saturday.
As per sir's suggestion, whatever question you have, just write it in your scribbling pad. We can continue maybe.
Yeah, we can also, because
If
we
you
are
have
meeting
anything,
again.
you can
we are
ask.
meeting again on Tuesday, so we can also do it on, because I don't want you people to wait here on Saturday evening. I know that you have a lot of appointments or like a lot of things to attend today. So you can have a nice weekend, and you can prepare all the questions and we can discuss it on Tuesday evening. Or you can also ask if you have something. Okay, so if there are no questions, we can close it. So thank you very much.
Never stop learning, because life never stops teaching. Good evening to one and all. I take this opportunity to thank everyone for the success of today's workshop. I thank today's resource person, Dr. J. Madegowda, Professor and Dean, Akshara Institute, Management Studies, Shimoga, and Professor Sridhar, Adjunct Professor, Department of Biotechnology, Ramalinga Swamy Re-Entry Fellow, Department of Applied Zoology, Mangalore University, Mangala Gangotri, for enlightening us on the topic publication ethics. Respected sir, you were very precise and systematic in your presentation. You made us understand publication ethics in a short span of time. On behalf of Dr. Chidananda A.L., Coordinator, Department of Education, Mangalore University, Mangala Gangotri, I thank all the participants for being patient listener. Hoping to see you all tomorrow sharp at 9:45 a.m., not p.m. Thank you one and all. Sir, I request Nagraj sir to give a token of love.